Good. All right. So I normally talk about digital designs and games that I do for archaeology by myself, but today I thought that would be a bit more interesting, looking at what could possibly be done in cases where archaeology has been destroyed due to wars or due to terrorism and more contemporary issues that are happening nowadays. So hence the title. So what we had before, and the start of the destruction of cultural heritage is not something recent. This has been happening, if you want to go back enough, even the Stone Age, because there was always someone that didn't like something that someone else did, according to personal preference, political views, religious views. So this is a constant thing that happens all the time. If you look at archaeological sites around the Middle East, and around Europe, you find that at least once in their lifetime they have been completely destroyed or redone by another culture. But the protection of these sites started with the International Convention in Geneva, due to the fact that during the war, both sides, both the Allies and the Axis, were destroying monuments. And this removed a lot of cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible, during that period. So they started with that. And then they went on with the Hague Convention, which created a system to control also the intangible heritage and kind of coined the heritage terminology. So these are ways in which institutions are trying to protect the destruction of cultural heritage due to different reasons. But the problem is, once they're destroyed, they're destroyed. There's not much you can do about it. For the examples I'm going to look at and apply some theoretical solutions to are the Buddhas of Bamiyan, which were kind of like the start of the TV popularity of what was getting destroyed in the Middle East. And these ones were destroyed in Afghanistan by the Taliban, just rocketed and dynamite bombed. And only a few parts of them were left. There have been various attempts to reconstruct them, and various opinions for and against it, but I'll explain that later. Then there was the looting of the cities of Adab, Hatra, and Nazin, which were in Iraq during the American invasion. And these were, again, complete destruction or taking away artifacts that disappeared completely. So we don't, because also the lists of these artifacts have disappeared, we don't even know what was there. So that's another problem due to conflict that seems to be unresolvable. Then the Aleppo Codex in Syria. This was a Jewish artifact that got partially destroyed. Parts of it were burned beyond recognition, and some others were glued together so that you could not actually open the pages and see what was inside anymore. And there could be some options for that one too. And the last one is the one where I was personally involved in, which is the city of Palmyra. I worked on it after the terrorist attacks that continued from middle 2000s till 2016. And I was there with the Hermitage Museum, and started doing some digital work on its reconstruction, but that was filled with problems too, both ethical and practical. So what can we do with digital technology? With the Buddhas of Bamiyan, which was kind of a back and forth between the community and the people interested in reconstructing, they started with photogrammatical reconstruction of the site. So basically taking pictures from the earlier photographs taken by archaeologists, joining them together with tourist pictures that were taken throughout around, I think, 30 years. And with this, they managed to reconstruct digitally one of the Buddhas. And this was placed in one of the museums as a 3D print, which created some controversy due to the fact that it wasn't the original. That's the problem that you get every time with the community. They'll say, yes, great that you reconstructed it, but it's not the original, so it's not as valuable or as important to me as the original was. And that creates this underlying issue with emotive attachment to artifacts. Can we actually reconstruct them with digital technology? Yes. Can we reconstruct the emotional attachment and the value of it? Maybe. You have to ask the community and see what they think, because they're the closest ones. They're the ones who created the artifact itself. The latest reconstruction of the Buddhas was done by the Chinese, who made a projector worth $1 million, which projected a reconstruction of the monuments or where they were before. So it's kind of a new way of creating what was there without disrupting what is left, which is kind of like the middle way, which a lot of scientists agree on. The Luton museums in Iraq, this has not been addressed that much lately because they managed to recover some parts, but most of the other things that were not recovered, there hasn't been a general solution for it. So for this one, I was thinking in terms of my own work and what I would do in this situation as I work with digital reconstructions. And the most common thing to do in situations like this would be getting the register of what was left, getting the pictures of what was left, and try to do digital reconstructions, either partial using digital design, handcrafted digital design, or photogrammetry of the object if we have enough pictures, which is very rare in these cases because they didn't have this type of technology in mind when they were cataloging everything. So that, again, you cannot recover the originals, you cannot find them, and all you have is digital versions of it if you have the material, the base material. And it also creates copyright issues, like the museums that used to host them, are they going to be okay with it? The other one was the Aleppo Codex. It was an extremely fragile artifact, and remaking this artifact or fixing it is kind of difficult. But there was a previous attempt on another artifact could have been that was similar in problems, which was the Engendi scroll of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And this one was remade partially by volumetric scanning, virtual unwrapping, segmentation, texturing, flattening. So basically, they took a picture of the scroll as it is without touching it. They virtually unwrapped it, made it into a flat version, then tried with the digital tools that they had to reconstruct the parts that were heavily damaged. And then they textured and flattened it again and gave a version which was actually readable from a very ancient scroll that would have been impossible to read at this point. So this is a possibility for the Aleppo Codex. But the problem again is the emotional and cultural attachment to it. The Aleppo Codex was also a symbol. So even if you reconstruct it digitally, the object itself is lost for the population. So the Jewish community would not consider it as important as the original. And the last one was Palmyra. This is something I particularly have a lot of understanding of because I worked directly on most of the attempts of reconstruction done by Russia. And what we did was in the museum, in the St. Petersburg Hermitage Museum, I created a holographic imaging system that now is used all over Europe. I forgot. Well, actually, I didn't forget. I patented it, but only in Russia. So Europe very happily took it 2 weeks later and patented it themselves. So that's kind of a technological object that projects images in a glass pyramid, which give the illusion that you're looking at a complete holographic object and when you're walking around it. And the reason I did that is because there was an attempt by the Hermitage to want to reconstruct in PLA or ABS plastics a 3D print of parts of the town. And due to weather conditions, aesthetics, and technical issues like the costs and machinery was almost impossible. So I was thinking about holographic images being projected instead of those on the site itself, We tried a small version in the Hermitage Museum. It was very popular for a year, but due to finances and political situation, it got abandoned. Other countries tried to do it. The Italians tried to do the physical real-life printing of the arch, which was also very publicized during the period, but it ended there. Only the arch was reconstructed partially, just a very small part of it, and then nothing else after that. And the art project, there was a private collection of images from all over the world that was used for digital reconstruction of the site. So as you can see, the cost here was the major problem. When you have such a large-scale destruction, and you want to implement digital reconstructions of this, or digital reconstructions which then end up in a physical version, the costs are prohibitive, and most governments, even governments, would give up on it. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this type of reconstructions? One, they have a large potential for education. They can reconstruct digitally the artifacts. They can be shared anywhere. Holographic technology is also something that's becoming more and more popular, and CAD is, from the beginning, has been like that. The cons, it's expensive. You need precise images most of the time, which you do not get. It relies on technology that relies on images anyways, or pieces of objects which you can't recover. And the interpretation is always done, because everyone that reconstructs puts their own opinion and technique into the reconstruction. So the local population, or even the global population, will not accept it as a fact, or they will accept as a fact something that's not really exact. So that will be also another issue. As a conclusion, I put photogrammetry and 3D printing can reconstruct versions of their heritage. But the technology still doesn't allow us to do the same as the original pieces of work. Holograms can be used for not touching what is left there, so leave the more recent history without being touched. But the problem is, again, impractical, expensive. You can't place in most areas. Imagine placing a holographic machine in a desert. It will melt within a few days. It wouldn't work. The emotional reconstruction is the main issue with these things. Most of populations and cultures do not like having something replacing something that was there before. So that's something that needs to be addressed as an emotional study, which is rarely done in archaeology. If you look for emotional studies on archaeology and digital, you find very, very little work. And that's kind of what I'm working on with my PhD, looking at how to recreate emotions through digital technology. And it leaves space for a lot of thinking to do around these areas, because there are a lot of problems that you don't think about technically when you're doing reconstructions, but you do think when you're thinking about theoretically, and ask the community itself. And that's all I had for today. I kind of went into the more theoretical background than the practical one, so it would be really nice to hear what you think about it.